There is something deeply uncomfortable about the way certain idol groups are marketed today, especially groups like Islet and the Seraphim. The issue is not that idols show emotion, struggle publicly, or defend themselves against hate. Every artist is human and no one deserves harassment. The issue is when suffering itself becomes part of the product being sold. At some point, the conversation around music started becoming completely overshadowed by narratives of victimhood, tears, anxiety, hate comments, emotional distress. Fans are no longer encouraged to engage primarily with artistry, performance, musical identity, or creative direction. Instead, they are constantly pushed toward emotional protection and defense. The idols become less like artists presenting work and more like fragile figures audiences are expected to emotionally rescue. This creates a very strange dynamic where criticism of music, vocals, stage presence, or creative quality becomes morally dangerous. The second someone critiques a performance, people immediately redirect the conversation toward mental health, bullying, or the hardships that the idols have endured. Whether intentional or not, sympathy becomes a shield around the group. It transforms ordinary criticism into something that feels cruel or unethical. And honestly, it raises an uncomfortable question. At what point does emotional vulnerability stop being authentic expression and starts becoming the brand? Because in modern K-pop, companies absolutely understand the power of parasocial attachments. They know fans are more likely to defend idols they feel emotionally responsible for. Tears generate engagement. Vulnerability generates loyalty. Public suffering creates stronger fan attachments than polished perfection ever could. A crime live stream spreads faster than a performance clip. A documentary about hate comments creates more emotional investment than a discussion about musical composition. This doesn't necessarily mean the idols themselves are manipulative. In many cases, they are probably under enormous pressure and genuinely overwhelmed. But then, entertainment companies are not naive observers. They study audience behavior carefully and they know emotional narratives are profitable. The constant framing of idols as wounded, misunderstood, or attacked can become part of the marketing ecosystem itself. What makes this especially frustrating is that it slowly lowers the standards for artistic discussion. Instead of debating vocal technique, live performance consistency, musical experimentation, or stage charisma, conversations become centered around who suffers the most online. The emotional narrative starts replacing the artistic narrative. And ironically, this ends up hurting the idols too. When artists are constantly protected through sympathy, people stop taking their artistry seriously. Fans become so focused on defending them emotionally that their actual music becomes secondary. The idols are discussed like vulnerable internet personalities instead of musicians and performers. This is not empowering, it is infantilizing. There is also a larger industry issue here. K-pop increasingly rewards emotional accessibility over artistic depth. Idols are expected to expose their pain publicly in order to maintain audience attachment. The parasocialism. The industry monetizes intimacy so aggressively that even suffering becomes content, tears become clips, anxiety becomes documentary material, hate becomes engagement, recovery becomes another storyline. Fans should absolutely care about idols as human beings. Compassion matters, but then audiences should also be allowed to critically engage with music and performance without immediately being framed as heartless villains. Supporting an artist should not require emotional submission or unquestioning protection. At the end of the day, music industries should produce artists, not just emotional dependency systems. And if the strongest selling point surrounding a group becomes sympathy instead of artistry, then something has gone deeply wrong with the culture around them.